who is going to fund the project is going to be driven by public-private partnership. It was clearly stated by the consultant. Both the framework, the policy framework or investment framework that they're going to propose, because government have no business doing government, but government have business to provide enabling environment for businesses to thrive. So, and also, being a critical business that might require serious investment, government will have a stake, because it's not going to be wholly a government-owned enterprise, but because they cannot have the skilled manpower to manage it. But they will have a stake that if it works, government will benefit, because taxes we pay to government, the investment will come back. So government will invest heavily by way of investing in infrastructure so that it will help and encourage other investors to come, because it is their own baby. Government is going to be the highest beneficiary, because the taxes that will come both to the local government, to state government, under payee, is the state's earning. So both federal and state government, the corporate taxes that will come is going to be, and you will jumpstart an economic activity that will have a multiplier effect in the economy, thereby increasing the GDP. So government have a stake to invest, but it is going to be driven by private sector for us to have a success in it. If you don't live in an environment, you work by news. Globally, news filtering out of Nigeria projects Nigeria as a high-risk environment. But that doesn't mean that the whole Nigeria is very unsafe. There are sectors of Nigeria that, but once you hear news, Nigeria, if you're a foreigner, you will assume that Nigeria is a high-risk environment, because there's a high level of crime all over. But because of that is global news, and you can only work with information you have. But if you go a step further and ask which sections of Nigeria are safe and unsafe for investment, you can get that details, that it is a duty. It's about global marketing. So you make sure you create an enabling environment for people to feel safe, because knowledge is power. The news filtering out of Nigeria projects Nigeria as a very unsafe environment, very harsh for a business. So that is what we have for the marketing. But you try to project that, oh, here is safe. We can do business here. We are providing security. Like Anambra, I can tell the governor have done well in security, and where is safe for us to do investment. So you can come to Anambra as an investment destination. You are safe, and you have hardworking people ready to work. We are very receptive to foreigners, and we're ready to work with anybody, because we're not going to depend on anything. We are industrious. We are hardworking. We are creative, and we're innovative. And we're working hard to make sure that we create a knowledge-based economy. We have to be innovative. So that is why here is focused. We're ready to do business. We've done businesses with all the parts of the world. Japanese have been coming here. Germans have been coming. Europeans, Asians, everybody. We are in tune with them, and we've already done business with them. And we have good partners with them. My family businesses are there. We have known relationships with most overseas companies that have tried for years. Most of the people here, you see, can afford to muster $2 to $3 million for investment in this place when you have good partners. So that is why here is safe for us to do investment.
The auto policy was written back in 2013, 2014. It's supposed to last till 2024, my understanding. And part of the challenge I see, a policy is only as good as you have been able to effectively manage it. I think where we are lacking, in my opinion, and I might be wrong, is the effective management of the policy as it stands. As a starting point, I would also say that some of the incentives that I've reviewed seem to focus on the assembly operations and the distributors, not really doing enough for the manufacturers, in my opinion, and I might be wrong. It's subject to discussion. The third point I want to make, and I'll stop it, there is a common saying, you don't throw away the baby with the bath water. The auto policy is not perfect. Obviously, there is provision, and there will be a need to modify it. The rate at which technology is moving, that policy was written 5 years ago. Some part of it must have been overtaken by the advancement in technology. And therefore, we will look at refreshing it at some point. But we're not going to abandon the policy because of the issues, in my opinion, and this is why we have to discuss it. We could at least get a head start and then make the necessary adjustments with time.
One of the problems of automobile sector is lack of component industry of motorbike sector here. So this country is missing this process. That's what I think. And usually, as you know, that growth of the motorbike industry comes first in the emerging market and then automobile industry. And once the national production of the motorbike reached the level of 300,000 units a year, then you can start to have a component industry of a motorbike. And usually in emerging markets, the motorbike component companies can also produce the components of automobile. It depends on the kind of the components, but some of the components are common or similar among the, motorbike components and also automobile components. So if you just motorbike components manufacturers manufacture the automobile components, that's going to be you increase the production volume and then you decrease the selling prices. That's going to contribute somewhat to reduce the production cost of the automobile. But the reality here is there's no component manufacturers in Nigeria. There were some reasons, several reasons. But one of the reasons is I think the component manufacturing, the import duty of the components of a motorbike is too low. Around 10% is one of the issues.
If we look at the automotive policy, there are several solutions proposed. For example, vehicle purchase schemes. But we also think that one has to think a little bit outside the box and explore new trends and developments, new technologies. And one such as new mobility concepts like ride-sharing apps and these kinds of things that could potentially generate large market demand because fleet managers are more likely to purchase new cars that are made in Nigeria than, they just resort to illegally smuggled cars that are illegally smuggled into cars. So thinking a little bit outside the box should also be a task for, the automotive policy. So we should look at new mobility concepts as a potential source of new demand. We should also look at public procurement. The government is an important source for demand, and that's also something that should be explored by the automotive policy. But in general, thinking outside the box should be a key task for the automotive policy, and it should probably be done in an institutional way. We have already the Development Council, and that's essentially a task for the Development Council to think outside the box and to explore, these new opportunities and these new technologies.